This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support. This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's February 17th, 2026. On this day, 26 years ago, Tennessee lost a remarkable person, Helen Lane. From her small town near Crossville, she became known nationwide for old-fashioned, nature-based ways of predicting the weather. Not to be too glib, but after what the region has been through in recent weeks, it's easy to think that we would have benefited from her foresight for this winter. I'm Tony Gonzalez, in for Nina Cardona with your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Helen Lane was also known as the Crab Orchard Lady. Crab Orchard was her rural community where her farming father taught her the ways of weather forecasting in the 1930s and 40s. As the story goes, and it was recounted worldwide by the Associated Press when Lane died, Helen Lane accurately predicted a massive snowstorm in 1959 and became a sensation. I'll recount her methods in a moment, but first, the scope of her fame. She would be featured in Life magazine and Time, and she appeared on PBS and on the Today Show. But it was hardly just about the national spotlight. Helen Lane wrote her forecasts for the Crossville Chronicle newspaper for more than 50 years. Back in 1990, the TV station WDEF in Chattanooga visited her for a profile that juxtaposed high-tech instrumentation with her ways.
Helen Lane's weather center is also her backyard.
As I say, years ago, they didn't have all this fancy paraphernalia. They had to learn just from the observance what to expect.
She would use a menagerie of observations about the world around her. She would check how spiders were making their webs, the thickness of woolly worms, the location of hornets' nests.
There's several things you can watch for. Thunder dates in February gives you frost dates for May. And the first katydid you hear in July gives you frost dates for October. And your early morning fogs in August will give you the number of snowfalls.
She became her own force of nature, and reporters across the state would often consult her for stories, especially heading into the winter. I'm going to defer on the scientific veracity and hedge on any scorekeeping about the accuracy. You may recall Nina Cardona a couple days ago touching on the science behind those woolly worms. But suffice it to say, Helen Lane is someone worth remembering. After her death from bone cancer in 2000, she was honored with a resolution at the state legislature. And it is the case that her adult daughter is still publishing predictions with the same techniques in the Crossville paper. So these rarefied ways, they live on. In just a few minutes, we'll hear about another unique Tennessean, the local rapper known as Intro, whose combination of interests could be the start of something almost as memorable as Helen. That's coming up after the newscast.
The justice system is complicated. I'm Paige Flager, and as WPLN's criminal justice reporter, I'm constantly asking, is the system working? And who is it working for?
The system is broken. I think it's more punitive than anything.
And this is not about justice anymore. This is about vengeance.
We're trying to get justice from a justice system that failed us.
How policies impact real people. Hear their stories here on WPLN News.
For WPLN News in Nashville, I'm Tony Gonzalez. There's new information about the scope of help needed from the winter storm. A deadline passed last week, and more than 2,600 Nashvillians applied to the Emergency Winter Housing Assistance Program. This is designed to give as much as $2,000 to people who meet income caps. It is administered by the Metro Action Commission and helps with hardships like property damage, loss of work, and unexpected expenses. Meanwhile, the court system in Nashville is creating a special process for people facing eviction because of the storm. If judges determine that tenants didn't pay rent because of storm costs, they can be transferred to a special docket that will include help filling out applications for rental assistance. Evictions have been a significant concern after power outages forced people to find other places to stay, often bearing additional costs. There have been calls for landlords to hold off on evictions or late fees, but hundreds of evictions were filed in the first 2 weeks after the ice storm hit. The state has also requested a higher level of federal assistance, though that has not yet been approved. A nuclear project in Oak Ridge has gained federal approval in what officials are calling a first in more than half a century. The company, TriSo-X, has been making its case to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to manufacture uranium at commercial facilities for the next 40 years. This uranium development is part of a national ramp-up on new nuclear projects with high-profile companies and funders. TriSo-X has been running a pilot for a decade at Oak Ridge National Lab. The latest approval follows safety and environmental impact reviews. A final inspection will come later. Tennessee's second immigrant detention center will be in Lebanon. Officials with Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement confirmed the deal, although Wilson County's mayor and state representatives told the Tennessee Lookout that they were not aware of the plans. A previously defunct prison in Mason, Tennessee, became the first ICE detention center in the state last fall after a contentious city council vote. Speaking in favor of both deals, an ICE spokesperson stressed the economic benefit of hosting a detention center. ICE has also signed on to lease office space in Nashville, something that one of that building's owners, State Representative Bob Freeman, tells the Nashville scene he wasn't aware of until after agreeing to the lease. Meanwhile, nearly 1,000 volunteers have been trained to monitor activity of immigration enforcement agents across the region. The training is offered by an organization called Music City Migro Watch. Luis Pedraza is a volunteer who says he faces a higher risk.
It's a lot more dangerous for people who look like me, I'm Latino, to be out there, show their faces, and stand up for their rights. So it's been a lot of white citizens who have been getting verified and have been stepping up.
Pedraza has a brother who was deported. On our midday show, This is Nashville, he said ICE activity in Middle Tennessee has migrated from the streets to the jails. He recently had a friend in Shelbyville who was deported from the Bedford County Jail. Figures from the Deportation Data Project show that in October, ICE made 800 arrests in Tennessee, with most coming from jails. Robertson and Wilson counties both saw ICE detention spike by 5 times compared to the prior year. Flooding from Hurricane Helene destroyed a hospital in Unicoi County. The small community of Irwin will get a new hospital about 7 miles away. That location is low-lying farmland. It could face several feet of flooding from a much smaller storm, according to a KFF Health News analysis. Ballot Health runs a state-approved monopoly of hospitals in Appalachia. It proposed building a new 10-bed facility at a cost of $44 million. KFF reviewed flood modeling from 2 climate data companies. Helene was considered a once-in-a-thousand-year flood. These estimates point out how unlikely a storm of that severity would be in a given year. The modeling found that a 100-year flood, a weather event much more common and less intense than Helene, could cover much of the hospital site with more than 2 feet of water. A scientist at one of the companies recommended building earthen embankments to protect the hospital or finding other ways to build at a higher elevation. Tennessee is now tracking how well children are flourishing. Roughly 6 in 10 meet the definition of flourishing, which is slightly behind the national rate. The metric is part of the annual State of the Child report issued by the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Kylie Graves is the author. She tells our daily show, This is Nashville, that flourishing is essentially the opposite of another metric that's been heavily studied, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs.
It comes down to, does the child feel supported? Do they feel like they have a non-parent caregiver who cares about them and is engaged in their life?
Interesting. An important factor is a non-parent, like an important adult in their life.
Yes, in their life.
Graves says Tennessee's flourishing figure is likely dragged down by the state's elevated poverty rate. Parents have a more difficult time giving children the attention they need if they're taking on second or third jobs. You can hear more from the episode on child well-being at WPLN.org or in the This is Nashville podcast feed. And you can find more news anytime at that homepage, WPLN.org. There may be an identifiable sound to hip-hop from cities like Memphis, Atlanta, Houston, and New Orleans. But it's hard to pinpoint any one aesthetic shared by Nashville rappers and producers. A Nashville artist known as Intro presents a different answer on his latest EP. Senior music writer Julie Height says that from style to subject matter, Intro makes clear that he contains multitudes.
Sure, I could have interviewed Intro at a studio where he records, but that would only help me get into one part of his story. It wouldn't do justice to an artist who rhymes about rising early to exercise as a flex. Since Intro's a certified personal trainer, we hit the gym together.
These are 2 5-pound weights. So this is what I start most of my workouts with anyway, whether it's leg day, chest day, whatever, because it's a full body movement and compound movement. So it's gonna be a squat to a press. So you come down here.
And hold it or come back up.
And just do about 10 of those for me. This is discipline right here.
And Intro incorporates that into his music making too.
I don't rely on like inspiration to write or to be in the studio. I've learned and found my own intrinsic motivation.
I had some discipline problems, so I went and got a schedule. I got a routine in order, and now I'm feeling better. Like here, I'm a meditate. Right here, my working hours.
And then the next will be a one-legged Bulgarian squat, but unweighted. So take one step, put your back of your knees against this one, and then just take one
Intro's
step
in workout clothes today, not the fashionable streetwear he usually performs in. Plus, he doesn't wear his grill to the gym. And on his latest EP, The Duality of Man, he paints a self-portrait that encapsulates all that and more.
So I know that people's first impression can be like, oh, he looks like a rapper. You know what I mean? But what is a rapper? That's a question that I want people to ask, because I'm also doing these other things that aren't necessarily rapper-esque, like baking banana bread.
Or going to therapy sessions, something else he depicts on the EP.
I know I'm seeing growth because I'm going to tell the truth even though it hurts. And I can't get mad at you because what you did, because I did it first. And I'm sitting less distracted and reflecting on my...
Then there are the other types of work that Intro does, as a professional elder caregiver by day and a club DJ by night. His relationship to music started early and stimulated his mind long before he adopted the name Intro. As a kid who everybody knew as Desmond, he was in piano and trumpet lessons and African drumming classes at the Global Education Center.
Growing up with African drums and African percussion just opened my mind up to more than just hip hop and rap and R&B, which most of us grow up listening to, especially African American. It just shaped me in a way that gave me an appreciation for way more than just what was put in front of me. You know, and I think I'm that type of person anyway, where I'll be presented with something and I'm like, what's under it? Or what's beside it? Or where did this come from?
In audio engineering class at McGavick High School, he had an instructor named Victor Aquindo who'd had success as a hip-hop producer. Aquindo was more than willing to help him set up a home studio and develop the right mindset.
And I told him like, yo, I want to be a rapper. He's like, well, this is what you need to do. And on a real tip, not shutting down anyone's dreams or like, it's really hard to chase. It's like, no, like I can give you all the keys that I can.
That's when he became Intro and forged a partnership with a fellow rapper in his class. After high school, he linked up with the local hip-hop collective Third Eye, led by the deep-thinking artist Chuck Indigo. Intro dropped a string of lo-fi Lucy's, but it wasn't until he made his first album in 2021, called Welcome to Next Year, that he felt he was zeroing in on a style he could own.
Look, say Mr. Say I got something to say. Say I got tons of people and they been tired of waiting. Say they been tired of facing. Say they been tired of chasing.
But he says it wasn't until he turned 25 a few years later and the frontal lobe of his brain was fully developed that he dedicated himself to being the best he could be on all fronts and depicting that quest in his music.
It was almost like I woke up on my 25th birthday and was like, oh man, you gotta lock in.
Duality of Man is the first project he's completed since. The shape-shifting Intro does across its 6 tracks, from braggadocious to conscious, player to philosopher, hard to soft, is united by a strong vantage point.
It goes from hype song to kind of mellow song, to kind of hype song to kind of mellow song. All I can really say is that's just me.
But he'd never say that he's the only one out here who contains multitudes. Intro's philosophy is there's some of that in everyone. And his work brings the many sides of Nashville hip-hop into focus. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
Problems in the past were product of me just staying the same. I make these songs so I can properly pop a lock on the pain. My reflection has told me why I'm probably going insane. Filling voids and broken women, cause they won't make me explain why I'm ashamed to talk about all the things that I'm ashamed to talk about and how I've been that way my whole damn life.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app And thank you to all of you who have left 5-star reviews or a thumbs up in the app of your choice. It does really help spread the word about the Nash Villager podcast. And of course, everything we do at WPLN is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.